What's happening, guys? We're back in the shed today and we're working on the front suspension. Alright guys, so the goal today is to get started on mounting our ball joints into our A-arms that we haven't started yet. Step one is we need a tube that this thing will thread into, so then we can weld that onto our A-arms and then get started from there. So we need to put threads on the inside of this. I can do it on a lathe, I can do internal threading, but my internal threading tool is too big to fit in there. And this is the big pipe. I got an even smaller one for the other ball joint, and this definitely won't fit in there. So I think what we're gonna do instead is jump on Amazon and just buy the proper thread tap for this size of threads, and just tap it with that. But in order to do that, I want to put a drill chuck on the tailstock of our lathe so we can drill it fairly straight and tap it straight. So the mission today isn't to put threads in here. The mission today is just to get a drill chuck mounted on our lathe, which is actually going to be quite a bit of work. So let's jump over to the lathe and I'll show you what we're looking at. Alright, so on our little lathe we got this little tailstock. Normally it just runs this little dead center on it so that I can support longer work. But I want to mount a drill chuck in there. So I have this little 1/2-inch chuck off of a drill that I pooched a while ago. So the plan is to mount this guy into here so that we can then drill and tap straight holes into our standard 3-jaw. In order to do that, we need to essentially replicate this dead center, but put the drill chuck mounting threads and everything off of this kind of arbor onto here. And I don't really want to cut this up because it's useful, so we need to make another one of these. I got some solid stock. We're gonna put this guy here into the chuck and figure out what this angle is so that we can cut that angle on our other bar, and then just kind of go from there. So let's just get started and see how it works. Real quick before we start cutting that taper, I'm going to flip it around and bring the other end down to size for this thread to accept the chuck. we have officially found the limits of my skill and my equipment. This is garbage. The taper's wrong. It doesn't fit into that hole correctly, and I can't get it any better because it keeps skipping out of the jaws. So I'm extremely frustrated, but I gotta throw this in the garbage, and I think we're just gonna go back to doing something we know how to do. Alright, so after grinding off those ugly TIG welds that we made there the other episode, it's pretty clear what happened. All the porosity starts right along the seam between the plate and the axle tube. So what's happening is it's not a perfect fit up between those two pieces. So as I'm welding on one side, it's actually sucking air in the back side and contaminating my weld from underneath. So I've seen guys fix this by like tin foiling the back of the weld, or even shielding the back of the weld with another bottle of argon. But that seems like a lot of work. So instead, I think we're just gonna Well, we probably pushed the duty cycle on that wee little welder, but it did pretty good. So one thing I did notice while I was welding these is the welds were a little bit more splattery, I guess, for lack of a better term, on the axle tube side. So there is probably still some contaminants kind of embedded in the axle tubes, and that was probably one of the things that was giving us grief with the TIG welder as well. So, and then like when I welded this joint here, which is, you know, virgin steel onto virgin steel, it welded fantastic. So there was kind of probably a couple things working against this when we were TIG welding, but the MIG did it just fine. So, yeah, so now the whole axle's all welded up and ready to go in the car. Unfortunately, we wasted a whole bunch of time this morning trying to get that lathe thing to work and mount a drill chuck and whatever. We wasted time on that to the point that we're out of time now for the week. So yeah, next week, I think next week we're probably gonna go jump onto the hood. It's December now, and I promised you guys that around Christmas time I'd do some fiberglass work. So I think next week we'll jump onto the hood. But in the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next week. I'm out of here.